Generally,
Ito, mga kabatas natin. Magandang ipaliwanag ko sa inyo ito. Kasi nga, tignan natin ito yung pagkakaiba niya sa flood control. This is a totally different species from the flood control projects. Yung flood control projects, yung mga pondo na yon, those are funds sa executive department. Okay? Those are funds given and spent by the executive department. Okay? Yun yung sinabi kasi ni Martin Romualdez noon. Executive yung flood control na yan. Itong expose nila na ito, mga kabatas natin, this does not involve the flood control projects. These are a different species. Ito ay tungkol sa pera, pondo ng Congress mismo. Ibig sabihin, ito yung ina-allocate na pera sa pondo para gastusin nila doon sa kanilang operasyon, doon sa kanilang opisina, at hindi para sa flood control projects. Ang pinapaliwanag niya dito, mga kabatas natin, yung mga personal expenses nililipat sa MOOE para doon kurakutin. Balik tayo. Sana maliwanag. Magkaiba yon. Ibang klase ng korupsyon ito. This is corruption within the Congress without the participation of the executive department using the Congress funds and not the executive funds for infrastructure. Gets? Okay. Let's go.
ang disbursements ay dapat supported ng resibo, ng payroll, billing statements, proof of delivery or service rendered, inspection and acceptance reports. Hiningi yan consistently ng COA sa Congress. But Congress saw this as an intrusion o panghihimasok ng COA sa legislative independence daw nila. Sabi ng Congress, ang trabaho or functions nila ay iba sa implementing agencies and that karamihan ng mga activities nila could not be reduced to the type of transaction-based documentation na hinihingi ng COA.
But we do know that the MOOE has been controversial because it does not require some kind of very specific line item expenditure purpose. In the same way, medyo vague po yung ano dito, yung paggastos dito. It's only requiring liquidation via certification. Isn't this also prone to abuse?
Yes,
Yung mga bonuses po.
Well, theoretically, yes. So it behooves on individual members of Congress, the lawmakers themselves, on how to judiciously spend and properly spend the MOOE because it's only subjected to certain certifications and not really itemized auditing. Yes, perhaps it's time to make to revisit that policy.
Halimbawa daw,
Okay, lexitary tayo muna para magkaroon tayo ng magandang idea, ha? Ito. The good question here is, does the funds of the Congress go through the General Appropriations Act? Kasi tignan nyo, kasi dito lahat, mga kabatas natin, so far, yung mga lumabas na ginamit sa corruption, they all go through the General Appropriations Act. Itong pondo rin nitong Congress, just like the funds of the executive department, they also go through the General Appropriations Act. Sabi dito, yes, they do. That's exactly a constitutional design. The constitutional design. Lexitary from batasnatin.com. Under Article 6, Section 25.3 of the 1987 Constitution, the budget of the Congress is part of the annual General Appropriations Act and is approved through the same process as all other departments or agencies. Okay, the procedure in approving appropriations for the Congress shall strictly follow the procedure for approving appropriations for other departments and agencies. That is constitutional. Ibig sabihin, mga kabatas natin, okay, the president still has to sign the budget for the budget to be approved. Okay, tapos dito, A few structural points worth noting: Congress cannot increase its own appropriation mid-year. Augmentation from savings is allowed but narrow. Reenacted budget rule. Blah, 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 blah. Pero that's very important for us to know. Okay? Para malaman natin kung ano talaga ang dapat nating maging mindset when it comes to kontsabahan sa pangungurakot dito sa Pilipinas. Okay. Let's go.
Magpa-feeding program sila sa 500 na katao. Alangan naman daw, napapirmahin nila isa-isa yung lahat ng yun. Di ba? Isa yan sa mga senaryo na sinasabi nila. Basta. Mahihirapan daw silang mag-comply. Ito ang reason kung bakit nagkaroon ng clash before between then COA Chairperson Grace Pulido-Tan at Congress at Senate.
Is there any indication na yung budget ng House of Representatives and the Senate are already arranged so that there is going to be savings?
The power of the purse is in Congress. I cannot delve into their.
And you do not want to tell me whether you think Congress abused that power?
No.
Why not?
Because, ma'am, I do not have enough basis at this point. But the way things are turning out, it may be an indication that the budget of Congress should also be a little more scrutinized.
Okay.
Kasi ang Kongreso, lahat po ng budget ng lahat ng ahensya, binubusisi
Ng
talaga.
Kongreso.
Oo.
Pero yung kanilang budget,
Oo.
hindi nila binubusisi. Bakit ganon?
Gusto ni Madam may strict na accountability sa budget. Gusto niya ihinto yung system kung saan certification lang ang pinapresent sa pag-liquidate ng MOOE. Isipin niyo yun, pipirma lang ang congressman o senador to certify na nagamit ang pera sa legislative work nila at hindi nila binulsa, and that was supposed to be enough? Gusto dun ko ginamit, promise.
Ganyan din kasi ang gastusan sa confidential funds. Kaya sinasabi ko sa inyo, dapat hindi. Walang pondo na magagastos sa ganyang paraan. Because they are saying that these funds are also spent in a confidential manner. Di ba? O, mga kabatas natin, huwag niyong kalimutan mag-like, ha? Let's go.
Yung totoo, kayo ba maniniwala dyan? Imbis na pakinggan si Madam Grace at gawing transparent ang paggastos sa budget, the Senate moved to formalize the existing practice. On July 25, 2011, both chambers approved concurrent resolution number 10, which explicitly recognized what it called the delicate and unique nature of the Senate, the House of Representatives, the Commission on Appointments, and the Electoral Tribunals. Sabi nila, COA naman had consistently allowed Congress to use liquidation by certification, and so they declared that this system was consistent with applicable accounting and auditing rules. So, it ordered that the prevailing system of accounting and liquidation for each member would be maintained.
In-institutionalize nila yung corruption.
Ng Senate ang measure na yan on August 24, 2011. The House concurred on February 1, 2012. With that, saan na iguguhit yung line between fiscal autonomy and public accountability? Saan papasok ang accountability? Ang COA constitutionally tasked to examine expenditures, but the Congress and Senate nilimitahan how closely COA could look. So again, paanong kukwestiyonin ng COA ang budget ng Congress? Actually, nagtry pa nga na mag-compromise ang COA. Sabi nila, ito-tolerate nila ang liquidation by certification only for relatively small operational expenses, hanggang 500,000 pesos, but subject to audit pa din. Anything more than that, kailangan na ng full supporting documents. Nasunod ba? Of course not.
In a resolution earlier published by COA, the deadline for all agencies to settle their unliquidated funds is today, January 31st.
Hindi talaga nila manipulate, no? Lalo na yung mga malalaki. Magkakaso kami.
Sabi ni Leviste, hindi kailangang resibuhan ng MOOE, kaya pwede raw magdesisyon ang kongresista kung paano ito gagastusin.
Kasali po dito yung kuryente, yung tubig, yung
okay.
paper ng house. Pero sa 2026 budget, initially, mga 10 plus billion siya, tapos naging 18 billion. Itinaas po ng 7.8 billion.
And shortly after this concurrent resolution number 10 was approved, pumutok yung issue sa unequal release ng additional operating funds sa Senate under then Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile na galing sa Senate savings from MOOE.
Senate President Juan Ponce
Okay,
Enrile.
mamaya tayo dyan. Importante rin kasi ito, no? Kasi nakita ko dito sa comment section may mga nagtatanong paano ang judiciary. Nabanggit niya rin kasi yung fiscal autonomy. Okay? Ang fiscal autonomy kasi, mga kabatas natin, okay, ito yan. Ito, i-compare natin sa judiciary. Fiscal autonomy changes the rules once the funds are appropriated. The Supreme Court in Bengson versus Drilon, GR number 103524, established that the judiciary's fiscal autonomy is more than just guaranteed release. It extends to how the funds are used. Sabi niya, the judiciary, the constitutional commissions, and the ombudsman must have the independence and flexibility needed in discharge of their constitutional duties. Tingnan nyo dito, constitutional commission sa judiciary at ombudsman. Wala dyan yung Congress. The imposition of restrictions and constraints on the manner the independent constitutional offices allocate and utilize the funds appropriated for their operations is anathema to fiscal autonomy and violative not only of the express mandate of the Constitution but especially as regards to the Supreme Court of the independence and separation of powers upon which the entire fabric of our constitutional system is based. Okay? The grant of fiscal autonomy to the judiciary is more extensive than the three mere automatic and regular release of its approved annual appropriations. Tingnan nyo kasi dito, what this means in practice. Yung executive, yung budget, it goes to the General Appropriations Act. Okay? Can the executive Congress impose spending conditions? Pag executive, yes. Pag judiciary, it goes through the General Appropriations Act din. Lahat yan pumapasok sa GAA. Pero can the executive Congress impose spending conditions? No. Fiscal autonomy means the Chief Justice controls disposition, augmentation from savings, and realignment. Tandaan nyo kasi dito mga kabatas natin, no, within GAA's line items. Kapag line items, alam na natin yan at napag-aralan na natin noon. Kung ano yung gagastusin nyo, dapat nakalagay doon specifically. Okay? Sabi ni Chad Norcio, pero attorney, personal service to MOA is not confidential po. Dapat with receipt po talaga in nature. Pero sabi nga nila daw, confidential in nature eh. Tapos, ito. Is there fiscal autonomy when it comes to Congress budget? No, Congress does not have the same fiscal autonomy that the judiciary and constitutional commissions enjoy. Nakita nyo naman yung Supreme Court decision, di ba? Let me be precise about what Congress does have versus what it doesn't. What the Congress has under Article 6, Section 25.5, the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House may augment any item in the GAA from savings in other items of their respective appropriations, but only as authorized by law. This is the same augmentation power granted to the President, the Chief Justice, and the heads of constitutional commissions. It is narrow, not broad fiscal autonomy grant. Okay, what the Congress does not have, there is no constitutional provision equivalent to what the court described in Benson versus Drilon. The authority to use and dispose of its funds and properties at will, free from any outside control or interference. That language was applied specifically to the judiciary, the constitutional commissions, and the ombudsman under the 1987 Constitution. So, ibang-iba. Okay? Hindi nila pwedeng akuin yung fiscal autonomy na meron doon sa constitutional bodies, sa ombudsman at saka sa judiciary. Okay? Independence from political pressure, yun yung sinasabi nila. Ano ang dahilan kung bakit may distinction o pagkakaiba? Congress, by contrast, is a political body. Its members are elected. Its function is inherently political, and its budget, while it must be adequate, is not constitutionally protected from the normal annual appropriations process, but process the way the judiciary is. Nakita niyo na. The bottom line, Congress budget goes through the GAA like the judiciary does, but Congress operates under the standard general appropriations discipline. Line item restrictions, limited augmentation, no constitutional immunity from budgetary alignment by the executive. Fiscal autonomy is reserved for the branches that need it to stay independent from political pressure. So, hindi nila pwedeng sabihin na dapat may fiscal autonomy sila kasi nga, political in nature yung Congress.
As explained in a news report, he gave 18 fellow senators 1.6 million pesos each for Christmas, while giving 4 others only 250 fellow senators
from MOOE.
Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile has explained in a news report he gave 18 fellow senators 1.6 million pesos each for Christmas, while giving 4 others only 250,000 pesos each. For 2012, the MOOE amounted to 2.218 million pesos per senator. The second and third tranches, amounting to a total of 1.680 million, were released to all except Enrile himself and 4 other senators, Alan Cayetano, Pia Cayetano, Antonio Trillanes, and Miriam Defensor Santiago.
Diba? Pinagpiestahan lang yung pondo.
1.618 million pesos in additional year-end o Christmas funds were released to 18 senators. Pero sina Senators Miriam Defensor Santiago, Alan Peter Cayetano, and Pia Cayetano and Trillanes only received 250,000 pesos each. So sabi ni Miriam, yung unequal o hindi pantay-pantay, selective and arbitrary release ng savings violated the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Sabi niya, ang power to realign savings should not be used as a personal o discretionary pork barrel para i-reward yung mga kaalyado. Iba pa yan, doon sa 50 million pesos daw na binigay sa mga senador na nag-impeach kay Chief Justice Renato Corona. Yan, ni-reveal yan ni Senador Jinggoy Estrada sa privilege speech niya noong 2013.
Saan galing ang pinamigay na pondo sa mga senador? Sigurado ako. Alam na alam ni Secretary Abad ang sagot sa tanong na ito. At sigurado din ako na hindi unilateral decision ni Senate President Drilon ang mamigay ng 50 million pesos kada senador.
Ironically, this was exactly the kind of discretionary spending that COA was trying to examine more closely and was trying to prevent, pero hinarang through concurrent resolution number 10. Sabi sa Senate COA report in 2012, ang regulation na ito na liquidation by certification at hindi kailangan ng resibo will remain valid and enforceable until a resolution is passed repealing concurrent resolution number 10 or until the Supreme Court declares it to be invalid. Now, in my own research at sa research ng mga kaibigan natin sa Dare to Ask, wala po kaming nakita na pinasa ng Congress o ng Senado na nagre-repeal o nagpapahinto sa practice na yan na liquidation by mere certification.
Siyempre nyo, liquidation by mere certification, yung certification nga, mga kabatas natin, it's not even notarized. So, ibig sabihin, you cannot even be liable for perjury if you lied in your certification. Kasi certification lang yun.
Fact, ang nakita pa nga nila sa Dare to Ask, in 2019, there was another Senate Memorandum Circular 2019-001 by no less than Tito Soto asking the COA for consideration to liquidate their MOOEs by certification only. Sabi sa resolution, in the conduct of its legislative functions and investigatory authority in aid of legislation, ang mga committee daw at subcommittee ng Senado engage in activities and transactions which are highly peculiar and different from the common or routinary governmental processes. Kasama daw dito ang expenditure of public funds. Kasama daw dito ang public hearings and consultations on matters of national security, political, economic, and social significance in coordination with various sectors and special interest groups. Ang vague, di ba? Parang lahat nako-cover doon. So, parang lahat may excuse na. Sumagot ang COA dyan with resolution number 2019-024 dated November 25, 2019 kung saan sinabi ni COA Chairman Michael Aguinaldo and Commissioners Jose Fabia and Roland Pondo na although they agree with the guidelines sa memo ni Tito Soto, hindi nila pwedeng payagan na yung reporting sa paggastos ng MOOE and other operating expenses o OMOE ay through certifications lang. Sabi ng COA, may expenditures na pwedeng i-validate o i-document through official receipts or other documents na magpapatunay na napunta nga yung pondo doon sa dapat na pinagkagastusan. At bilang pareho ang functions ng Senate and Congress, this applies to both. Nasunod ba? Of course not. In fact, sa mga members of Congress na natanong ko po, lahat sila ang sinabi, lahat ay liquidation by certification lang. And it looks like this.
Di ba? Wala nga
They said that congressmen looks like this.
Isipin mo, local travel, communications.
They said that congressmen get the same baseline for MOOE budget. And if they need more, of course, they can request for more money. Now, the higher amount sa samples na nakuha natin ay nasa 716,000 pesos. Per month yan, ha? So, gawin na natin 1 million a month. Well, actually, gawin na nating realistic. Kasi balita ko, may increase na 300,000 pesos this month. So, mas mataas pa kapag kakampi ka o kapag nasa leadership ka. Isara na natin sa 1.2 million pesos na average na lang sa lahat. Malaki na yan, ha? Generous ako. Multiplied by 12 months, 14.4 million a year per congressman. Multiplied by 318 congressmen, that's 4.58 billion pesos. Marami pa tayong dapat kalkalin para mapuno ang halos 22.4 billion pesos na MOOE budget ng Congress for 2025. Yan siguro ang dahilan kung bakit paborito ni Martin at Yeda Romualdez ang MOOE. Kaya between 2022 to 2025, tumaas ng 8.8 billion pesos ang MOOE allocation ng Congress.
Wow, ito yun. My God.
Ang pera ng bayan ay hindi para sa pansarili, pakinabang ng ilan. Tungkulin natin bilang mga kinatawa na tiyakin ng bawat piso ay para sa katulad at kapakanan ng ating kababayan.
I'm sorry, may nabago ba sa trabaho ng mga congressman na hindi natin alam? May nabago ba sa mandato nila para kailanganin nila ng halos 9 billion pesos na karagdagang MOOE budget? Sabi ni Congressman Leandro Leviste,
Dapat tayo maging transparent saan napupunta ang 18.58 billion pesos na MOOE budget ng House of Representatives.
Kung Lian, that's 4 billion pesos less than the 2025 budget. I suggest you really start there. And if the trend sa pag-transfer ng pera from personnel services and capital outlay to MOOE continues like before, madadagdagan pa yan ng 1 to 2 billion pesos. Malalaman natin kapag lumabas ang audit report ng COA for 2025 in the next months. Mahirap nga ba na i-report lahat ng expenditures? For reference, ganito kadetalyado ang reporting sa paggastos sa Canada at ganito naman sa US. Sure, nire-require ng batas na once a year pinapublish ang itemized list ng mga pondo na nabigay sa mga congressman at nagastos nila. Pero, meron na ba sa inyo na nakakita niyan sa Philippine Star? Broadsheet, ha? Hindi man lang yung online version na madali
Totoo yan.
nating mag-google. Bakit hindi gawing available ang itemized list of amounts paid to and expenses incurred for each House member sa COA website? If you go to the COA website, 2020 lang ang naka-upload doon. And if you want a copy of the more recent reports, well, kailangan mong i-request at magbabayad ka ng 5 pesos per page para sa hard copy, 20 pesos per report para sa electronic copy, piso para i-authenticate nila yan, pati delivery fee, sagot mo pa. Pera natin yan. Pero lahat na lang ng pagpapahirap para makakuha tayo ng kopya ng report kung paano ginamit ang pera na yan, aba ginawa na nila. I-request mo pa, ikaw pa magbabayad, my God. Diniscuss ni Martin sa speech niya kung paanong napapasa ang budget para ipakita na wala daw siyang kasalanan o wala siyang role sa corruption. Well, it's important to note that during the leadership of Martin Romualdez, nangyari ang pinakamalaking pagtaas ng budget ng House of Representatives mula sa proposal ng Executive Department sa National Expenditure Program o NEP hanggang sa mapasa ang National Budget o ang General Appropriations Act o GAA. Between 2016 to 2025, the budget of Congress in the NEP o yung proposal ng Office of the President increased from 7.79 billion pesos to about 16.35 billion pesos. That's a 109...
Alam niyo, hindi lang si Martin Romualdez naman ang pinapatamaan dito. Lahat sila sa Congress eh. Senators and congressmen alike.
9.8% increase, a difference of 8.55 billion pesos. From 2020 to 2025, naglalaro lang ang budget ng Congress sa NEP between 14 to 16 billion pesos. For the first 4 years of the Duterte administration, ang nadagdag sa approved budget ng Congress from NEP to GAA ay gumalaw lang between 1 billion to 1.75 billion pesos. October 2020, naging chairman ng account si Paulo Duterte, anak ng presidente natin that time, Rodrigo Duterte. Ibig sabihin, nagkaroon siya ng say sa naging budget ng House for 2021 kung saan umabot ng 3 billion pesos ang
Wow.
nadagdag mula sa NEP hanggang sa GAA. At pagdating ng 2022, presidential election year yan, usually lumalaki ang budget ng House kapag election year dahil nagiging busy sila at nagkakaroon sila ng pagpapalit ng staff kapag may mga bagong pasok sa Kongreso. So, from 15.57 billion pesos na proposal sa NEP, naging 21.57 billion pesos ang budget ng Congress sa GAA. Ibig sabihin, nagdagdag ang Accounts Committee headed by Pulong Duterte ng 6 billion pesos. Medyo nakakagimbal, di ba?
Wow.
Take note though, recovering pa tayo sa pandemya at that year. At dahil presidential election year yan, alam ng House leadership na pagdating ng June 2022, ang makikinabang na sa budget na yan ay ang 19th Congress. So ang nagmana ng budget na yan ay ang House ni Martin Romualdez.
From the outset of the 19th Congress, we committed ourselves to a singular purpose, to be the vanguard of progress, the custodians of justice, and the architects of a future where every Filipino, regardless of station, has access to opportunity, security, and dignity. We have not wavered.
Daldalan lang talaga, no?
We have not faltered. Together, we have rewritten what is possible.
Tapos na ang election year. So ang expectation, bababa even a little ang budget ng House. No. In 20...
Actually, mahirap gawin ito ng 2 days. Kasi maraming research tsaka maraming daldal eh.
2023, the first fiscal year na ang in charge ay ang mag-asawang Romualdez sa budget ng House. From the President's proposal of 15.97 billion pesos, nagdagdag ng 12.04
Wow.
billion pesos ang mag-asawang Romualdez sa budget ng House. Kaya kumapal ito to 28.01 billion pesos.
Conjugal, pagnanakaw. Conjugal na pagnanakaw to.
Doble pa sa dinagdag ng House when Pulong was chairman of accounts. And in just 2 years, in 2025, lumobo to 33.67 billion pesos ang budget ng House. Pinakamalaki in history. Taong
Sarili nilang pondo, doon sila kumukuha ng ninanakaw din nila.
2025, nanggalan ng 74 billion pesos ang PhilHealth sa parehong taon. Nagdagdag ang Kongreso sa ilalim ni Martin Romualdez ng 17.32 billion pesos sa sarili nilang kaban. Tinalo pa yung sariling record niya in 2023 na 12
Wow.
billion pesos na patong from NEP to GAA. Ito ang pinakamalaking budget ng Kongreso ever. Sa sobrang garapal ng pagtaas, pati ang Senate pumalag na.
After the BICAM, the Senate's budget ay 17.3 billion pesos. So ang start ng Senate, 12.8 billion pesos plus 1.1 billion pesos. Ang budget natin is 13.9 billion pesos. Ang House of Representatives, ang starting amount nila 16.3 billion pesos, ang increase nila 17.3 billion pesos, ang ending budget nila 33.6 billion pesos.
Wow.
Ang aking lang basic point dito, Mr. President, kung ganito rin pala ang ending ng ang amounts, bakit hindi na lang linabas natin sa plenary at iniscuss? Bakit kailangan sa BICAM pa mangyayari ito, Mr. President, na halos lumampas pa sa doble ang budget ng isang chamber na bala ko sanang samahan na salihan next year, Mr. President. But we have to be transparent about all of this, Mr. President. Na, di ba, if you need, okay, we'll use mathematical terms. If you need 2x instead of x, bakit hindi pa na-reflect yan doon sa original bill na pinail mo? Sana pinare-reflect mo na yung 33 billion pesos na pangangailangan mo. That's my point, Mr. President. So I'm not expecting an explanation from our chairwoman kasi hindi naman niya ito kagagawan. So for more transparency in our budget process sana, we will discuss it sa floor.
Pero syempre, walang nagawa ang Senado because what Martin wants, Martin gets. Mula sa pinakamataas na budget ng Congress sa panahon ni Duterte na 21.57 billion pesos. Again, over half of which 19th Congress na ni Martin Romualdez ang gumastos. Kasing kapal ng mukha ng mag-asawang Romualdez ang pagkapal ng budget ng House to 33.67 billion pesos. All together now, class, gago, di ba? I'm not done yet. Hihimayin pa natin yan. Naku, kung sa NEP to GAA comparison,
Pero
nagimbal
grabe
na
yung
kayo.
ano.
Well. Uminom muna kayo. Dahil
Emphasis kasi yung pinapakita nila dito eh. Nababasa ko dito sa comment section. Public knowledge naman na yan. No? Pero ito kasi ine-emphasize na nila na ang gumagawa ng mga kalokohan si Martin Romualdez at saka si Yeda Romualdez. Yun yung parang pinanglalaban nila dito. Hindi yung parang ginawa sa Senate o kaya ginawa doon sa mga ibang public fora kung saan nagsalita sila na lumaki yung budget nito, yung Congress, ganto-ganto, pero wala silang ina-identify o mini-mention ng mga tao. Specifically na may liability dito. So dito, dinidiin na si Martin Romualdez at saka yung kanyang asawa. Nagtataka ako dito, bakit wala si Asidre? At tama yung sinabi ni Jeff Fox, di lang emphasis magnified. Correct. 3.6k viewers. Palike naman.
papunta na tayo sa nakakaiyak at nakakagalit na part ko. Inom kayo. Let us now look at how Congress under Martin Romualdez as Speaker and Dieda in accounts spent the budget it gave itself. I-compare natin ang GAA allocations ng Congress sa actual spending na nasa record ng COA at tingnan natin if the numbers actually make sense at legitimate nga ang savings ng Congress o posible ba na pang Martin Luther Fund lang ang ginawang pagtaas ng budget. Take note, ang nasa COA report ay kung ano lang ang accounted for. Like I said earlier, ang personnel services, medyo mahirap doktorin kasi sweldo, benefits at bonuses yan. May records dapat yan. But there are items here that did not make sense to me. For example, ang rata o representation and transportation allowances. Take note, considered na commutable ang items na ito which make them non-taxable and not subject to liquidation. Commutable, ibig sabihin, the allowance is paid as a fixed cash amount imbes na i-reimburse mo yung actual na nagastos mo. So, you get the money outright, no questions asked, and regardless kung saan mo siya totoong gagastusin or kung gagastusin mo siya at all. Sa representation, why is it that for an item na ang recorded na ginagastos every year from 2018 to 2024 ay between 8 to 11 million pesos lang, ay may yearly budget na 56 million pesos at nadagdagan ay may yearly budget na 56 million pesos.
So 8 million, 11 million yung pinakamataas lang na nagagastos nila. Pero umabot sa 50 million. Tapos 62 million pa.
At nadagdagan pa ng 6 million pesos in 2025. Ganyan din pagdating sa transportation. Exactly 56.5 million pesos every year from 2018 to 2024 ang nilalagay na budget sa GAA. Pero hindi pa umabot ng 10 million pesos ang nagastos sa item na ito sa COA records. Tapos, dinagdagan ng 6.28 million pesos in 2025. Sa dalawang item na yan
Kaya ang dami nagalit talaga noong 2025 na eh. Sobrang sobrang garapalan na.
Nasa 80 to 100 million pesos na ang diferensya at pwedeng inilagay na lang sa budget sa pagpapatayo ng classrooms o sa pagpapalakas ng kapasidad ng PGH. But no, mas mahalaga na may wiggle room si Martin Romualdez. Napunta ba ang pondo sa items na yan o pang Martin Luther Fund? Pero ang pinakamalaking kalokohan na pinondohan sa ilalim ng personnel services sa ilalim ng mag-asawang Romualdez ay ang terminal leave. What is terminal leave? Yan yung cash value ng mga unused vacation and sick leave credits ng mga empleyado na pwede nilang makuha when they leave their job, whether through retirement, resignation, end of term, o kapag namatay sila. In 2016, presidential election year, ang Congress ni Pinoy naglagay ng budget dyan na 177.35 million pesos. At dahil election year yan, asahan natin na magkakaroon ng pagbabago sa komposisyon ng mga empleyado. May mga staff na lumilipat sa opisina ng ibang congressman, kapag end of term o natalo ang principal nila at mayroon namang nagre-retire sa government service. Yung mga natanggal o yung hindi nagpatuloy sa government service pwedeng makatanggap ng terminal leave benefit. 34.46 million pesos ang nagastos dyan in 2016. 19.43% ng inilaang budget. Now, while I understand na contingent liability ito o pinupondohan mo yung possibility, hindi yung certainty, tell me if these amounts are acceptable. In 2022, another presidential election year, Congress spent 38.36 million pesos on this item according to COA. In 2023, Congress under Martin set aside 631.35 million pesos for this item. Ang nagastos that year, sabi ng COA, 80.77 million pesos lang, 12.8% ng allocation. In 2024, hindi election year yan so bumaba to 292 million pesos ang allocation. Ang na-release for that item that year, 44.74 million pesos. 15.32% ng budget. Ilang tao kaya yan? At ilang vacation at sick leave ang hindi na-avail before para umabot ng 45 million pesos ang na-release dyan? Interesting. Anyway, in 2025, midterm election, nagdagdag ng 832.12 million pesos sa item na yan para sa tumataginting na 1.12 billion pesos. Were they expecting na malalagasan sila ng malala sa Congress dahil subadsad ang trust rating nila pagkatapos ng nakakaumay na Quadcom hearings at backlash sa coercion daw sa pagpapapirma sa impeachment complaint against Sarah? How many people did they expect to lose? And why did they add 278.67 million pesos more sa terminal leave for 2026? Hindi naman yan election year. So ang budget nila for terminal leave this year is the highest ever, 1.4 billion pesos, bringing the total budget for personnel services from 7.27 billion pesos to 8.12 billion pesos, the highest ever in the history of Congress. Tell me, is Martin Romualdez just being unfairly accused of being a corruption mastermind? Biktima ba talaga siya o buwakaw? Hindi ba talaga niya kontrolado ang mga importanteng committee sa Kongreso when he was speaker, including the one headed by his wife? Sasabihin niya,
ito na siguro yung worth 300 million pesos.
Nung mga mapapanghe na fanay ni Martin, hindi naman na si Martin ang speaker in 2026.
Huwag lang tayong mag-focus dun sa mga galit ng DDS. Isama din natin yung mga tao na dating-dati pang nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno. Si Romualdez, 3 taon pa lang yan dito as House Speaker. Diba?
Well. Guess who still sits as Senior Vice Chair of the Accounts Committee? Yeda Marie Romualdez.
Believe me, and I assure you that the Speaker, Martin Romualdez, and I will always be behind you and we will continue to support your leads.
At kaninong mga tao ang nagpapatakbo ng committee na yan? According to my sources in Congress, people from the Tingog party list of Yeda Romualdez.
Salang ang among tumong, ang maminaw ug mo serbisyo para sa inyo.
Chika nga sa akin hinaharang sa accounts yung changes na gusto ni Speaker Bogie D. Tapos, iniipit sa FLR issue. Hindi naman siya ang may paandar niyan. Kaya ba tinathreaten ninyo ng coup? Bakit? Ayaw nyo kasi hindi siya gigil sa impeachment ni Sarah? Ayaw ninyo kasi hindi nakakalusot yung mga gusto ninyong investigation katulad na lang ng sa Dolomite Beach? Ayaw sakyan yung pamumulitika ninyo dyan kaya hindi kayo makapaldo? Dahil nga sa kanya kaya tumaas kahit konti ang trust rating ng Congress. Tapos gusto ninyong palitan? Batukin ko kaya kayo dyan ng mga arinola? Personnel services pa lang yan Wala pa tayo sa capital outlay. And I think there should be a separate episode on that. But for now, let's go to the more controversial MOOE. And I suggest, lahat kayo na nag-aabang
Ba't ang tagal nung kaila yung mga bossing? Yung kaila Kristan, kaila Falsis.
Bibigay na script sa inyo para ipagtanggol si Martin Romualdez pagkatapos ng episode na ito. Do your own research because I came with official documents from COA. I came with receipts. Traveling expenses. Pasok dito yung gastos sa local na biyahe ng mga congressman at secretariat at support staff for official functions and investigations. Pati ang airfare and transportation allowances kapag umuwi sa districts nila ang mga congressman o baka papunta sa bundok. Kasama din, yung iba kasi dyan sa Congress, sa bundok nagre-research, yung kanilang mga staff, allegedly. Kasama din yung mga official na biyahe nila abroad. And by the way, nasa speaker din kung sino ang gusto niyang kasama sa mga overseas trips. May pocket money pa daw yan between $1,000 to $2,000. Ibig sabihin, accommodation, transportation, pati pocket money, sagot natin yan. From 1.6 billion pesos in 2022, naging 2.58 billion pesos in 2025.
Wow. Sana basketball to, no? Para illegal yung traveling.
By 950 million pesos in just 3 years. Pero kung titingnan natin ang amount sa COA report, nasa 500 to 560 million pesos lang ang actual na nagagastos on this item every year between 2022 and 2024. So bakit nagdagdag ng 400 million pesos para sa budget sa 2025? Dahil eleksyon? Kailangan may appearance si Best Speaker of the House. 1.12 to 1.6 billion pesos ang difference between what's in COA's record and the GAA budget. Saan ni-realign ang difference na yan? Is there a way na makita natin lahat yan o tanggapin na lang natin na nasa Martin Luther Fund na yan? Ang training and scholarship from 42 million pesos in 2022 naging 64 million pesos in 2024 at naging 94.53 million pesos in 2025. So between 2022 to 2025, tumaas ang budget dito by 52 million pesos. Ang justification sa 2024 COA report, tumaas ang budget kasi tumaas daw ang fee sa face-to-face trainings, conventions, and seminars. Explain to us then, bakit ang gastos for years 2022 hanggang 2024 na nasa COA report, nasa 3.95 to 6.5 million pesos lang? Ano ang basehan ng 94.5 million for 2020 na diferensya sa reported sa COA at sa budget sa GAA? Kayong mga empleyado ng mga congressman, alam ba ninyo na may ganyang kalaking budget para dyan ng Congress? Nagamit nga ba ninyo yan? O pang Martin Luther Fund na lang? Supplies and materials. Kayo dyan sa opisina ng mga congressman, ilang beses kayo nagpaluwal ng sarili ninyong pera para sa bond paper, sa tape o kahit sa ballpen? Alam ba ninyo na from 524.77 million pesos in 2022, naging 1.34 billion pesos ang budget para sa supplies and materials in 2025? Pero ang ginastos dyan sa 2024, 84.79 million pesos lang of the 939.87 million peso budget that year. Tapos nagdagdag ng 400 million pesos for 2025? Sabihin na natin, umabot sa 120 million pesos ang gastos sa 2025 kasi hindi pa natin alam dahil wala pang COA report. Pero ilagay na natin sa 120 million. 1.22 billion pesos pa ang matitira. Again, saan kaya nire-align yan? At ang mas mahalagang tanong, how sure are we na walang nagamit dyan sa eleksyon? Dahil kung staff ka ng incumbent at gumamit ka halimbawa kahit kalahating rim ng bond paper para mag-print ng campaign materials, violation ng election code na yan, misuse of public fund na yan, graft na po yan. May sumilip na ba dyan? Masisilip ba yan? O lost na to the Martin Luther Fund? Utility, oh my God, utility. Kuryente at tubig. In 2022, ang budget dyan ay 485.47 million pesos. Ang nagastos, according to COA records, 105 million pesos. May bills ito May bills, may kopya. In 2023, naging 125 million pesos ang actual recorded spending sa COA report. 2024, bumaba at 113 million pesos lang ang nagastos kahit na tumaas to 854 million pesos ang inilagay na budget dyan. So bakit ang budget na nilagay ng mag-asawang Romualdez para sa utilities for 2025 ay 1.35 billion pesos? Bumaba na nga ang bills ng 2024, particularly ang kuryente, according to the COA report, dahil may energy conservation measures daw dyan sa house. May solar panels at nagkaroon ng solar-powered streetlights. So bakit nagdagdag ng 500 million pesos para sa utility ng 2025? Steady lang ang utilities between 100 to 125 million sa mga naunang taon. Tapos magdadagdag kayo ng 500 million pesos? Bakit? Saan mapupunta yung 1.23 billion pesos na sobra? May mga temperature controlled volts na ba na matakaw sa kuryente kaya budget ng Congress na lang ipapasa ang bill?
Ang tanong ko dito, kapag kunwari kulang na kulang, 'di ba, yung pinasa nila sa COA na liquidation nila, ano ang gagawin ng COA ba dapat doon? Wala na? 'Di ba? Yun ang magandang ko. Kasi pag titignan nyo talaga, sobrang daming nawawalang pera eh.
Oh my gosh. Para ba yan sa Martin Luther Fund?
Ito pala yun, Martin
Sinabi.
Luther Fund ng Martin Luther Fund.
Communication. Ito yung budget para sa telepono, internet, tsaka postage and courier services. From 2022 hanggang 2024, ang actual na gastos dito nasa 274 million pesos lang hanggang 280 million pesos. Steady lang. So why did the budget for that go up from 562 million pesos in 2022, again, a presidential election year, to 1.89 billion pesos in 2025, just a midterm election? 280 million lang sa nakaraang taon ang liquidated for this item sa record ng COA. Tapos, ang brilliant idea ng mga Romualdez, dagdagan ng 600 million pesos the following year. Ano ito? Telebabad? Hindi uso ang unli data? Para saan ang difference na 1.61 billion pesos? Para sa Martin Luther Fund? Professional services para sa legal, auditing, and consultancy. Isa pa to, naku. Ang bulk niyan nasa consultancy services para tumulong sa pag-draft ng mga bills at mag-research. 5.9 billion pesos ang budget in 2025. Mas mataas ng 800 million pesos compared sa 2024. Between 2022 hanggang 2025, tumaas ang budget dyan by 976.74 million pesos. Consultancy ha? Sana auditing staff ang kinuha ninyo para tumino kayong lahat dyan. Ayaw nyo sa auditors? Halatang allergic kayo no? Sa mga auditors kasi hindi mapupunta sa Martin Luther Fund kapag maraming auditor. Ito pa, general services, mga janitor, security. Wow! From 214.96 million pesos noong 2022, tinaas ang budget para dito to 425 million pesos in 2025. Excuse me po, 130 million lang ang pinakamataas na ginastos ninyo dyan according to COA, and that was in 2023. In 2024, bumaba pa yan to 104 million pesos kahit tumaas by 14 million pesos ang budget sa GAA. Then, did they add 175 million pesos para sa 2025? Tapos, from 425 million pesos, bumaba ulit to 297.5 million pesos ng 2026. Kahit tapatan pa natin ang pinakamalaking nagastos dyan na 130 million pesos. Dagdagan pa natin ng 10 million pesos dahil election year 2025. Baka kinailangan ninyo ng tagalinis, pati ng mga konsensya ninyo. 425 minus 140. May 285 million pesos pa na sosobra.
Ang yaman ng Pilipinas, no? Doon sa mga bago lang dito, papaliwanag ko ulit ha. Itong mga pondo na ito, these are not funds for the executive department. These are funds for the legislative department. Ibig sabihin, itong pondo na ito ay yung mga pondo na inallocate ng House of Representatives at ng senators sa kanila para sa budget nila, para sa pagpapatakbo ng kanilang opisina. Okay? So, pag titignan nyo, yan, kung saan galing lahat to mga to. O, tuloy natin.
Ba kayo ng security? Nagdagdag ba kayo ng janitorial staff? 'Di ba? Nabawasan pa nga ang trabaho nila dahil pinagbawal na mag-collect sila ng basura from the offices ng congressman. Magkano po ang sweldo ninyo dyan, mga janitor, mga security sa kongreso? Alam ko po, naka-agency kayo. Pero mga ma'am, mga sir, kayang-kaya hong doblehin ang sweldo ninyo dyan dahil may budget for it. Naramdaman nyo po ba yon? Sana man lang po, naambunan kayo ng budget na yan.
Oh,
Kasi
meron pala siyang iyak dito eh.
po, may pera. Ginamit yung item ninyo para pakapalin ang budget ng Congress. Pati item ninyo, ginamit. Naramdaman nyo po ba? Imagine how much your lives could change kung sa inyo talaga napunta ang budget na yan.
Oo nga, no? Grabe talaga yung kawawa dito. Talaga yung mga mabababa ang posisyon eh. Sila yung talagang honest dun sa trinatrabaho nila pero hindi honest yung pay na nakukuha nila.
Kung ako po sa inyo, mag-iiwan po ako ng patay na daga sa vent ng mga swapang dyan kasi buwisit talaga sila. Pati janitor, security, kinukupitan pa. Grabe na nga yung trabaho ng mga tao na yan. Tapos, todo effort para maging relatable. May pa, sila sa stage dyan. Tapos ganyan ang trato ho sa inyo ng mga janitor. Gago. Napakagago ho. 'Di ba? Sana sa inyo napunta. Hindi sa Martin Luther Fund. 'Di ba? Repairs and
Ito yung worth 300 million.
maintenance from 611 million pesos in 2022, naging 975 million pesos ang budget sa 2025. Ang ginastos ng House dito in previous years, hindi man tumaas sa 21 million pesos. In fact, in 2024, nasa 13.22 million pesos lang. Kahit gawin pa nating 30 million pesos
Anong
yan.
pasihan kaya nila dito sa pondo nila na ito kung ang nagagastos nila ay ganyan lang?
Para saan ang sobrang 945 million pesos? Manipis na ba?
1 billion, no? God. Tapos mayaman na yan si Martin Romualdez, ha? Sinasabi niyo hindi na magnanakaw.
Ang Martin Luther Fund? Kailangan nyo pa ng pera? Other maintenance and operating expenses, OMOE. Umpisan natin sa advertising and promotions or marketing expenses. Ang tanong, di ba may reporter ang bawat major publication and network na assigned sa Congress? Bawat congressman din may sariling media staff. So bakit tumaas ang budget for advertising and promotion from 28.6 million in 2022 kahit 205,000 pesos lang ang nagastos that year according to COA to 31.46 million pesos in 2023 tapos tumalon ng 531 million pesos in 2024 hanggang sa naging 639 million pesos in 2025 kahit 9 million lang ang ginastos in 2024.
Pambayad sa trolls. Hindi ba kasali sa advertising yun, yung pambayad sa trolls?
So between two election years, 2022 at 2025, tumaas ang budget for advertising and promotions by 611.38 million pesos. May kakompetensya ba ang Congress sa exposure at kinailangan nilang itaas ang budget for this? Again, magkano kaya dito ang ginamit sa eleksyon? Ganun.
Grabe, no? Mga kabatas natin, this is equally important doon sa flood control projects. Sana matotal ito, no?
Baka pangit ang image ninyo dyan at kailangan ninyo ng malaking budget to promote yourselves? Napaka self-serving naman. GGSS? FOMO? Or, dyan ba pumasok ang troll farm na di umano ay funded by Congress and trained sa batasan mismo? Or, pang Martin Luther Fund? Printing and publication, 6.3 million pesos lang ang liquidated sa budget na 131 million pesos noong 2024.
Bakit pumapayag? Ito kasi mga kabatas natin, Siyempre, tinanong ko na naman si Lexitary. Ano ang pwedeng gawin kapag kunwari, yung rini-report na pera, magkaiba doon? Di ba? Depende sa defect. Sabi niya. Yung fiscal autonomy kasi nila, limited. Hindi katulad ng fiscal autonomy nung nung judiciary na pinag-usapan natin kanina. Yung fiscal autonomy nila, yung automatic release lang ng budget nila. Okay? Tapos, but it cuts both ways. Once released, the use and liquidation of the budget is a matter of internal legislative privilege, separation of powers. So ito, kapag funds misapplied by legislators, yung pork barrel, typos, enactment, intervention, strike down the scheme as unconstitutional under separation of powers. Belhica versus Ochoa. Ito yung mga pork barrel. Lump sum fund with no proper liquidation reported to COA. COA may flag it in its annual report audit. Congress may be cited for failure to comply with COA rules. Legal basis, PD 1445. Funds appropriated but not used for intended purpose. Petition for mandamus plus declaratory relief. COA disallowance. Ang NARS party list versus executive secretary. Appropriation law itself is defective. Petition for certiorari prohibition. Void appropriation. Criminal misuse. Unauthorized disbursement of congressional funds. Complaint for graft. Republic Act 3019. Malversation. Falsification. Malaki talaga ang mga kabatas natin. Malaki talaga ang role ng Commission on Audit. Tapos, pwede rin magkaso ang citizens. Ito, kapag complete na liquidation, kasi ang hindi liquidate billions per year. If Congress simply refuses to liquidate at all, ito, parang yung ginagawa nila dito. If Congress refuses to liquidate at all, barrier, no penalty for non-liquidation as a body. The Constitution does not require Congress to liquidate the way an executive agency does. It only requires COA to audit. Yun ang problema natin. Ito, this is the real problem that we have right now. Kasi non-liquidation yung linalabas dito eh. Yung pinalabas ni Cj Hiro dito, non-liquidation. No penalty for non-liquidation as a body. Kasi pag titignan nyo dito, may nangyari sa pera. Misapplied by individual legislators. Diba? Ibig sabihin, alam natin na may ginamit yung pera kung saan. Diba? Ito naman yung lump sum fund. Okay? Ito naman, funds din, appropriated, pero hindi ginamit sa intended purpose. So, makikita nyo yung takbo ng pera. Makikita nyo yung takbo ng pera dito. Pero, ang malaking loophole na kanilang inaabuso ay ito. Non-liquidation as a body. The Constitution does not require Congress to liquidate the way an executive agency does. It only requires COA to audit. Yun yung barrier. Pag titignan nyo kasi dito, di ba? Pinapakita niya ni Cj Hiro yung nagastos nila as a body. Tapos kung ano, yung liquidated lang. Tapos yung mga iba, they refuse to audit. Ito, COA can disallow individual expenditures but cannot dissolve a legislative budget. Kung yung individual expenditures identified, pwedeng i-disallow yan. Pero pag yung budget, binibigay nila sa kanila ng bultuhan at lumulobo ng ganyang kalaki, hindi pwedeng pigilan ng COA na magkaroon ng budget yung legislative body. Congress controls its own rules. Belhica struck down post-enactment legislative intervention by individual members, but the House as an institution controls over its internal appropriations. Hindi nga pwede, sabi dito, hindi nga pwede kontrolin ng House of Representatives o kaya ng Senate yung executive department, yung budget ng executive department, post-enactment control, wala. Pero syempre, yung budget na binibigay nila sa sarili nila, may control sila dito at internal appropriations ang nangyayari. Ito ang nakakainis. Bottom line, there is no criminal or civil remedy against Congress as a body for failing to liquidate its budget unless specific individuals engaged in fraud, malversation, or graft. Ito ang malaking loophole din dito sa ginagawa nila na dito. We have to identify the individuals involved. Just like itong pag-identify nitong si Cj Hiro. Pero kailangan natin mas specify yung mga yan. Dito tayo mawawala. Dito tayo matatalo. So ano yung practical steps? Complaint with COA. Request COA's annual audit, petition for mandamos, graft malversation complaint, legislative remedy. Kawawa tayo dito. Tignan nyo kasi, yun yung kailangan natin gawin. We can do taxpayer suit. Pero ito yung non-liquidation nila yung kailangan nating habulin. Yun yung mas malaki. Tapos, ang pinaka-importanting gawin nila dito dapat is to fix the system so that in Congress, there will be proper liquidation, proper reporting, accountability, and transparency. Because in Congress, there really is no transparency and accountability. Isipin nyo, liquidation by certification na nga, hindi pa sila nagli-liquidate. Di ba? Isipin nyo yun. Liquidation by certification na nga, hindi pa sila nagli-liquidate. Yun yung pinakamalaking problema natin dito. Nakalagay naman dito, no? We can actually petition for mandamus, declaratory relief. Iba-iba eh. Funds misapplied by individual legislators. Diba? Unconstitutional siya. Diba? Lump sum fund with no proper liquidation reported to COA. Iba rin ito. Report mo sa COA pero walang proper liquidation. Ipa-flag ng COA. Funds appropriated but not used for their intended purpose. Iba din. Ibig sabihin, ginamit nila sa iba. Petition for mandamus. Appropriation law itself is defective. Petition for certiorari prohibition. Ito siguro pwede nating... Pero mahirap eh. Anyway, pagsubukan natin pag-isipan. Criminal misuse, syempre yan yung graft. Individual din yan. Pero ito yung malaking problema natin dito. No penalty for non-liquidation as a body. Because the Constitution does not require Congress to liquidate the way an executive agency does. It only requires COA to audit. So sinabi dito, hindi naman sila kailangan mag-liquidate. Kaya nga liquidation by certification lang yung ginagawa nila. Mag-o-audit lang yung COA. Pero there's no requirement for liquidation. Yun yung mga barriers natin dito. COA can disallow individual expenditures pag itemize lang siya. But it cannot dissolve a legislative budget. Hindi naman nila ina-itemize yung budget nila. Binibigay naman nila sa sarili nila yon. Lump sum, lump sum. Congress controls its own rules. The House, as an institution, retains control over its internal appropriations. Yun ang problema dito.
Sa request ng COA na i-liquidate ang gastos sa MOOE via official receipts and documentation instead of just certification, ang may problema dyan ay yung nasa leader. Documentation, in-date ang gasto, ang congressman ha. So yung pagpalag sa request ng COA na i-liquidate ang gastos sa MOOE via official receipts and documentation instead of just certification, ang may problema dyan ay yung nasa leadership. Ang may problema dyan ay yung ayaw makita na ginamit nila sa pamumulitika ang budget na yan o ginamit nila for expenses other than what they were for. Ang papalag dyan
pero yun pang
ay yung...
isa pang problema dito tulad nga ng sinabi ko. That is for those reported and liquidated. But even if liquidated, they were liquidated in the wrong manner. Certification lang. Pero paano yung mga non-liquidated na pera? Ng body as a whole.
Nagmamalabis sa paggamit ng budget na yan. Hindi pa nga natin nasilip ang totoong napuntahan ng capital outlay. Magkano ginastos sa renovation ng Romualdez Hall? Magkano ang ginastos nung pinalitan yung damo sa helipad? Magkano ginastos sa pagsasaayos ng Mitra Hall, ng Women's Legislators Room, ng hall entrances? Hindi pa nga natin nasisilip yung mga kontrata, yung bidding para sa mga yan.
Yung Senate din may bagong building, di ba?
Ang ginagastos every day sa buffet sa Speaker's Social Hall, Appropriations Chair Office, tsaka sa Accounts Office. Magkano pa buffet sa office ng majority at minority leaders, sa South Lounge, yung mga pakain kapag may committee hearings, yung bidding sa office supplies, construction, tsaka renovation works, SONA production, ang dami pa po nating hindi nasisilip. Lahat yan dumadaan sa accounts. Kay Yeda Marie Romualdez.
I'd like to sit down with the governor and see what he needs and how we can also help, di ba? And how we can work together as a first nominee of Tingog. I want to talk to him kung ano yung mga needs in Eastern Samar, what we can do to help, and how can
Ngayon nga binackground siya di ba? Hindi siya nagsasalita si Asidre.
create a better relationship also.
Magkano dyan ang napupunta lang sa Martin Luther Fund?
هناك طريقة أفضل لتداول تقلبات الذهب. مع بلس 500 يمكنك اقتناص
Sa sobrang dami ng pera ng Congress, kapag tumambay ka daw sa land bank dyan, kahon-kahon nilalabas ang pera. As much as 200 million pesos a day. Accounted for ba lahat yan? Babalikan ko ang tanong ko kanina, with the pattern na nakita natin sa budget ng Congress, lalo na sa ilalim ni Martin Romualdez, can you honestly say that the savings being realigned to and within MOOE are legitimate savings and that there is no padding or over-appropriation happening?
Hindi kasi na savings yun Kasi ang ginagawa nila, kunwari savings. Pero maglalagay na sila ng sobra-sobrang budget nila para meron silang malarong pera. Ganun yun. Those are not savings. Sinadya talaga na lakihan yung pera more than doon sa magagastos nila. Kaya pag nakikita nyo, di ba, yung nagagastos nila maliit lang. Ngayon, tataasan nila. Tapos sasabihin nila may savings sila. Hindi savings yon. Yon? Intentionally inappropriate yon sa kanila para magmukha na meron silang savings. When in fact, wala. Kasi nga, sinadya nila yon na perang lalaruin nila.
Savings must be incidental to execution. Hindi po ito dapat designed into the...
Sabi ni John Ruy, can we pass petition ba, attorney, para maripaso yung loophole na yan? Or baka pwedeng ilapit sa mga matitinong senator para magsimulang ayusin ng batas. Ang tanong, sino yung matitino? It will be very difficult. Tignan niyo yung nangyayari doon sa Tignan niyo yung nangyayari doon sa anti-political dynasty law. Sinisindikato lang naman lahat dyan sa Congress Tignan niyo yung mga naipapasang batas, yung mga batas na hindi natin kailangan. If they really, if the people in Congress really care about us, alam niyo yung number 1 na ipapasa nila dapat, yung Fair Collections Act. Di ba? Alam niyo yung Fair Collections Act? Yung kapag ikaw baon ka sa utang, tapos sisingilin ka, dapat sa legal na paraan ka lang sisingilin. Hindi nila pinapasa yun. Bakit? Ang daming naglalabi dyan na maraming pera para wag ipasa yon, para makapagharas sila ng mga taong walang pera. Di ba? Yung anti-slap law, para hindi nila magamit yung korte natin o yung pag-file ng kaso para harasin yung mga nagsasalita lang at ginagamit yung kanilang freedom of speech. Wala. Ano yung mga pumapasa? Yung mga para sa kanila lang. Wala. Ngayon, with the congressmen and the senators that we have, and with the bills that they're passing, and how they are trying to deceive the people in allegedly passing an anti-dynasty law, kalokohan na yun. Walang matitino ngayon. We need a really good leader who can make people accountable. Yung isang may political will na pwedeng pumalo sa mga nagkakasala. Tandaan nyo, yung presidency sa 2028, it will be very important. You know why? The president is the most influential person. Kung maayos yung may i-elect sa 2028, maraming mapapanagot, maraming makukulong, maraming magbabago. Yung 6 na taon na yon, kung marami kang napakulong doon, kung marami kang naipakita na bad example, magkakaroon ng reform. Maraming magbabago ang direksyon.
Budget. Ang dami na nga ninyong perks eh. Hindi pa enough? Samantalang yung mga tatay ng mahihirap na pamilya natatanggalan ng dignidad sa pagpila para sa ayuda sa gasolina, kayo pataas ng pataas ang budget.
Kaya alam nyo ngayon kung bakit yung mga senators natin tsaka yung mga congressman natin nandiyan lang sila. Because of how lucrative it is. Dahil ang laki ng pera dyan pa lang. Paano pag nag-tap ka pa dun sa infrastructure projects sa DPWH? Di tiba-tiba ka.
Tapos ang biktima si Martin Romualdez, ang kawawa si Martin Romualdez, ang inaapi ay si Martin Romualdez. Anong explanation para sa napakataas na allocations pero mababa ang liquidation sa COA? Honest mistake?
Big dreams start small. At GoDaddy, we help you take that first step and every step after. From getting your domain to creating your website, email, and online security, we've got you covered. You don't need to be a
Honest mistake? Late reporting? Nasaan ho ang mga resibo ninyo? Eh dapat kayo ang may disallowance kung transparency lang din ang pag-uusapan. Meanwhile, taon-taon, pataas ng pataas ang cash in bank ng Congress.
Yun ang problema eh. Ito yun, no? Disallowance, di ba? Yung binanggit niya. In-identify na lahat ni Lexitari yung problema natin dyan. They cannot remove the whole amount. Yung disallowance na yan, sa line items mo lang magagawa. hindi nga natin alam kung saan nila ginagastos yung pera natin na dapat pondo nila.
3.95 billion pesos in 2019. Nadagdagan ng 220 million in 2020 kaya naging 4.17 billion. Nadagdagan ulit ng 2.5 billion pesos kaya naging 6.67 billion pesos in 2021. Nadagdagan ulit ng 3.8 billion pesos kaya naging 10.47 billion pesos in 2022. Nadagdagan ng 8.19 billion pesos kaya naging 18.66
Pagpasok talaga ni Marcos lahat, no? Marcos Romualdez tandem, the best.
billion pesos in 2023. Nadagdagan ng 8.995 billion pesos kaya naging 27.65 billion pesos noong 2024. Ang pinakamalaking pagtalon ng pera ng Congress sa bangko ever. Para saan ho yan? Hindi naman kayo PhilHealth o SSS o GSIS na kailangan ng malaking reserve fund. Hindi din naman kayo nagbabalik ng pera na sobra sa budget ninyo sa National Treasury. So para saan ho yan? Sa Martin Luther Fund?
This issue has been on his back for what, the past 7 months. Until I started to explain what happened in this thing, I think nobody was even talking about it, no? And I thought that it was not fair, no? But I think this is part of the reason why he has become so much a target for everyone, no?
I understand you work with him, but I think we need to hold our leaders accountable. He is the Speaker of the House.
Puno likes to sow seeds of deception.
The budget emanates from the House. There are talks of ostentatiousness and extreme wealth. I'm sorry I have to bring this up, but to defend the Speaker that he's a victim in all this, it's appalling to the Filipino people. I mean, Congressman, it's very difficult to defend Martin who was in power unless he submits his salib. He explains. Stepping aside, I don't think is enough for the Filipino people. I mean, it's not personal to me. I'm not angry at him personally, but as a leader, this is inexcusable. Parang biktima pa siya na ang bait niya. Naniniwala ba kayo na posibleng makasuhan at makulong si Martin Romualdez?
Pwede. Kasi bakit nila pinakasuhan si Revilla at pakulong nila? Bakit hindi? Di ba? ICI also, yun lang ang problema kasi sabi nila i-livestream nila, hindi nila livestream. Kawawa yung ICI. Sinabi ko na when I was in Europe, mag-resign na kayo, mga inutil kayo. Naiwan na lang ngayon si former Justice Andy Reyes. I mean, di naman siya makaresign, di ba? Di ba? Technically, that is already inutil.
As of July 29, parang 80 plus billion yung hindi na ma-release out of 209 na insertion ng House of Representatives. Kasi mukhang kaduda-duda. Yung iba na-release yun. So meron siyang ginawa. Hindi totoo na wala siyang ginawa. Otherwise, di pinalusot na yun, di ba? Yes, sir. So the fact na
alam nyo, mayaman tayo because we are the people of the Philippines. One of the most taxed. We are taxed like a first world. Pag pupunta ka sa first world countries, makikita mo kung gaano kaganda yung mga nare-receive nung mga yon na government services. Gaano kaganda yung kanilang mga infrastructure. We are a third world country wherein ang mga tao tinatax na parang first world. Tapos dyan napupunta yung pera kasi natin. Kaya rin tayo hindi umaangat. Di ba we keep on saying we have the money, we have the resources, we have the people. We have natural resources. We have good tourism until now. Ngayon, bagsak na yung tourism natin. Pero mga kabatas natin, none of this are going back to the people. Binubulsa nila lahat. We need really reform. Malaking pagbabago. Maganda rin na in-expose ito ng PGMN and kudos to PGMN. No? This research is not a joke. Maganda na na-compile niyo yan at na-realize sa mga tao kung gaano kagrabe na talaga yung nangyayari dito. Kasi nga hindi lang executive ang problema. Legislative ang laking problema.
Pinaaral sa akin, pinakuha yung records, unang-una at the fact na hinold. So merong ginawa.
When Congress distorts the budget, it also distorts fiscal planning. Dahil ang
Correct. Isa pa, mga kabatas natin na suggestion ko, let's use AI. When it comes to actually keeping records, we don't need blockchain. We need AI and transparency. Kapag pinapasok yung mga records, inaaral agad ng AI. Merong report ura-urada, segundo lang may report ka na. Just like how I developed Lexitary. Itong si Lexitary, mga kabatas natin, ang legal corpus niyan, hundreds of thousands of cases, doctrines, ano pa ba, laws, lahat, nandyan lahat, nasasagot niya lahat ng mga legal questions. Imagine ninyo, if we use AI, just like Lexitary, yung si Lexitary, tanungin mo siya, ano yung Republic Act ganto-ganto, sasagutin ka niya. Ano ang penalty sa ganto-ganto, sasagutin ka niya. What if we feed all? We have our own local AI per government, tapos doon sa country, yung buong bansa meron din, holistic. Reports lang, those are just numbers. It will not need isang malaking data center or storage. Siyempre, significant pa rin. Pero because they are not images, they are not videos, they are just numbers and letters. Ipasok mo doon. Sagutin, tanungin mo doon, magkano yung budget ni ganto sa araw na ganto. Ibibigay niya lahat sa'yo. In seconds. Pero nakikita ko ang paggamit nila ng AI ngayon dito sa gobyerno natin, kalokohan din eh. We need people, kung mag-spearhead tayo ng AI, we need people who really know how AI works. Hindi pwedeng kung sino-sinong tao lang. Sabi ni JV, AI is not stable but very powerful tool. AI is becoming stable. And AI can be stable as long as you put the correct guardrails. If you only work according to data, according to a corpus that you feed it, it can be stable. Tapos lagyan mo ng guardrails, just like what I did with Lexitary, may guardrails yan. Kapag gumawa siya ng sagot, tapos walang citation, it self-corrects itself. Siya na yung magsasabi, tinanggal ko na ito kasi hallucination yan. Pero tama yung doctrine. Senator Aquino proposes, si Bam Aquino, blockchain the bill, then integrate with AI for easier access. We don't need blockchain. Blockchain is very expensive. We don't control blockchain. That's the problem there. If Bitcoin will die, kasi wala nang magmimina. Kasi yung mga nagmimina na yan, sila yung nagsusulat dun sa blockchain. Kung wala nang nagmimina at lumabas na lahat ng Bitcoin, paano na magkakaroon ng mga computers na magpapower sa blockchain? Saan na yung mga multiple ledgers na yon na contained doon sa mga nagmamine ng Bitcoin? Attorney, wala na pong pambayad sa Eve of AI pa, kaya hindi ako mayaman. Meron akong sariling AI. We have our own AI, batasnatin.com. And I can boast that it's the latest technology in AI now. It's agentic, it's self-learning, it's self-correcting. Pag bumagsak yung Bitcoin na yan, blockchain will die. Sino magme-maintain ng mga ledger na yan? Kaya nga sinasabi ko, people should understand how blockchain works. Kapag gilagyan mo ng guardrails yan, tapos pinatakbuhan mo ng AI yan, tapos meron kayong guardrails, subukan nyo ito ha. Well, hindi kasi kayo gumagawa pa ng ano eh. Ganito kasi, parang ako, I develop Lexitary the AI. Meron akong linagay ng mga guardrails. Meron akong linagay ng mga rules that are mandatory. Even if I try to violate those rules, sasabihin niya sa akin, hindi pwede yan. You have to have certain access level para may ma-violate na rules. Pero ito, it's about transparency lang naman eh. If we want to be transparent, AI. Every transaction, picturean mo, i-feed mo sa AI. Tapos, ang usapan, you don't even need to keep the copy of the physical papers. Transactions, you submit, feed to AI. I-calculate niya agad yan. Di ba? Hindi ba hackable yung AI? Hackable yung AI. Pero, kahit yung industry standard lang na backup system, meron kang backup na nandoon sa server mo, meron kang removable na backup, meron kang cloud na backup, kahit yung tatlong yun lang, tapos yung magiging backup mo doon sa isa, write only. You cannot delete. Write only lang siya. You cannot delete. Tapos ang usapan. Yun lang, tatlo na yun. That's industry standard. That's industry standard. Tatlong backups. Kahit yun lang. Kung gusto mong 5 backup, better. Pero kahit ngayon tatlong na yun eh. As long as you will have one. Read only. Di ba? O, tuloy natin. May nagre-reklamo na. Saka na tayo mag-AI daw. Pero that's a good direction to take. Construction cost, upload mo sa AI. Lahat upload mo sa AI. Tatago niya yan. Huwag blockchain like I told you. Blockchain will die eventually. Tuloy natin. We only have a few minutes left.
Economic managers natin, binabase yung deficit programs, yung borrowing programs, yung expenditure targets natin on the figures in the GAA. So we should be able to confidently assume na lahat ng numero na nandito reflect real and executable needs. Kapag inflated ang numbers na yan from the start, mas malaki ang uutangin ng gobyerno. Bababa ang allocation para sa ibang sectors or tatanggalan na lang ng budget ang project sa iba, all because of funding levels sa Congress that were never actually intended to be used as programmed. Aabot
Tapos
sa...
ito pa ang problema dito, mga kabatas natin. Remember, yung budget na nakukuha ng Congress dito, they are not returned as services to people. They are not converted into infrastructure. They are purely diretso sa bulsa.
Atin na mga ordinaryong mamamayan yan. Isipin ninyo, dahil gusto nila na may savings sila, ang napapala natin, delayed services. Hindi pantay-pantay na project implementation. Mas masikip na fiscal space para sa mga programa that directly affect our daily lives. Pondo para sa health, pondo para sa edukasyon, infrastructure, pati social protection programs. Tapos ang solusyon ninyo, libreng kuryente sa mahihirap, temporary employment sa tupad, walang...
Kinukorap kasi talaga nila lahat yan eh. Alam nyo, mas mura ang AI, sa totoo lang. Kapag gagamitin nyo siyang, pagtago ng data, pag-analyze ng lahat, AI is cheaper. You can build your own local AI. Even if you use cloud AI, actually mura din eh. If you build your own AI, you teach your own AI, if you have the infrastructure, if you have the money for it, it's free. Kuryente lang babayaran mo.
Humpay na pila para sa ayuda, kaya may AIX dahil kay speaker, kaya may AKAP dahil kay speaker. Ayuda, 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 punyeta! May namatay na nga, di ba?
Bumulagta ang motorcycle taxi rider na ito habang nakapila para sa 5,000 fuel subsidy sa Quezon Memorial Circle kahapon. Sinubukan siyang saklolohan at bigyan ng CPR ng mga kapwa rider. Hanggang sa dumating ang isang medic. Kalaunan, kinumpirma ng Department of Social Welfare and Development na nasawi ang lalaki.
Nag-e-enjoy kayong makita na may pumipila para sa ayuda? Kinikilig kayo na dinudumog ng tao ang paayuda ninyo? Ganyan kaliit ang tingin ninyo sa amin. Tapos sasabihin ni Martin, walang kasalanan? Sasabihin, walang alam sa nangyari sa pera? Pero sabi niya, no speaker can personally control every committee. Sige nga, try to throw your wife under the bus. Kasi kung hindi mo magagawa yan, then you cannot make us believe malinis ka sa naging kalokohan sa committee ng best friend mo na si Zaldico. Lalo't bilyon-bilyon din ang unjustified...
He will not throw his wife under the bus, for sure. Only the wife was able to throw COMELEC Commissioner Andy Bautista under the bus. Yun lang yun. Tapos si Andy Bautista hindi na rin napauwi.
increases sa budget ninyo sa Congress dahil sa asawa mo. Lahat ng ma-associate sa'yo
Sabi ni Rock Prime, maraming horror stories sa local AI like OpenClaw. Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, well, there will be a lot of horror stories. Kung hindi mo alam yung ginagawa mo. Pero pag alam mo yung ginagawa mo, success story ka.
lipan ng bilyon-bilyong halaga ng anomalya. Yan ba ang biktima? Yan ba ang hindi mastermind? Sa lagay na yan, buwakaw ka. I wish si Speaker Boji D would be given the freedom to clean up the house and get rid of any lata or influence of Martin Romualdez.
He cannot do that. He cannot do that. He's way in too deep also. Merong mga tropahan.
Sabi ni Martin sa message niya, matagal na siya sa politika. Madami na siyang nakita at narinig. Madami daw siyang alam. At kung political play daw ito, he will not go quietly and he will not go alone. You think that whole speech was addressed to the Filipino people? No. That speech was a warning to his co-conspirators. I said, sa umpisa ng episode na ito,
Tumira nga siya doon sa tumira siya doon sa executive department doon eh. Pero maganda rin yung ginawa nito si Cj Hiro ng PGMN. Tumira siya sa executive department. Binalik niya yung bola sa Congress. Kasi pinakita niya na doon sa Congress, doon sa budget niyo mismo, malaki ang korupsyon.
Martin Romualdez should never be speaker again. I don't think that's enough. Sa kung paano nila tayo binabastos, sa kung paano nila pinaglalaruan tayong lahat, Martin Romualdez and everyone in his family and his circle who lied to us and worshiped him like he is God should never be qualified to run for any public office ever again.
Agree! There is failure to liquidate.
Pero dinagdagan ng 90 million pesos. Kaya naging 221 million pesos. Kahit ilagay pa natin yan kunwari sa 20 million pesos, saan binalak dalhin ang savings na 200 million pesos?
Look at
Savings
this.
nga.
The Congress fails to liquidate as a body. If we cannot pinpoint or actually trace who pocketed this money, it will be a very, very difficult battle.
Aba talaga? O pang Martin Luther Fund? Membership dues and contributions to organizations, 4.18 million pesos lang ang pinakamalaking ginastos in recent
Yan
years.
yung liquidated kasi.
But from 77.2 million in 2022, ginawang 130 million pesos in 2025. Para saan ang
And that's
125
the 130, yung 125 million na yun, that's the one that they failed to liquidate as a body. Yun yung mahirap habulin.
million pesos na allowance? I hope I did not bore you with all those details, but I need you to feel the anger na nararamdaman ko going through all the reports and making sense of all the bullshit and all the lies they have been forcing down our throats for years.
We have to fix this. We have to check this. Pero I bet hindi nila i-check yan. Hindi nila ayusan yan. So, well, C4GG. This is another, another battle, another advocacy that we have to take.
Martin Romualdez is an honest person and that he loves us. That Yeda Marie Romualdez is clean and that the country needs Tingog Party List. No, they need us for themselves. And if you are still not convinced that they fucked us over, I have 3 more things to add. Everything I have presented so far are budget items that kept going up in the GAA even though actual liquidated spending according to COA records show consistent underspending. Only 3 items in the budget of Congress had a GAA allocation that is lower than the actual spending. At ang pera para sa 3 items na yan go directly to the congressmen and all are liquidated only by certification. Representation expenses, which cover any public and official appearances of the holy ones that they make as part of their job. This rose from 395.44 million pesos in 2022 to 515.6 million pesos in 2025. Ang ginastos nila dito ay sumobra sa budget by 77 million pesos in 2022 and by 68.85 million pesos in 2023. The other one is the OMOE or other maintenance and operating expenses. Pasok din dito ang other expenses incurred by oversight committees for various undertakings katulad ng meetings, ocular inspections, and other operating expenses necessary in the exercise of its mandate. Expenses sa committee and office meetings, mga party caucus, plenary sessions, at kapag may bumibisita ng mga foreign dignitaries.
This is a really good research din, no? Kudos to PGMN for doing this. Kudos sa inyo. Kay Cj Hiro din, kudos sa iyo for doing this. This is completely separate, of course, doon sa extortion at saka doon sa instigation, kung ano man yon. Okay? Pero, this is very alarming.
May public affairs fund din dyan at ang district operating expenses ng lahat ng House members. Socio-cultural related activities of HREP, gender and development related expenses, other miscellaneous expenses that are necessary in aid of legislation. So medyo malawak ang covered dito. Sa 2.29 billion pesos na budget for this in 2022, ang reported na gastos sa COA sa kanilang record ay over 5 billion pesos.
Yun ang problema. Those are unliquidated. Unliquidated by the body. Not per individual.
They kept the budget for it at 2.9 billion pesos in 2023, but they actually spent over 6 billion pesos. I wonder how much they spent sa item na ito in 2025 dahil tinaas nila
Ang hirap
budget.
nating habulin ito. This is worse, okay? You know why? You know why this is worse than the corruption in the executive department? Because the corruption here that's happening, wala tayong remedy na magagawa. Because the liquidation is, the failure to liquidate is done as a body. And according to law, there is no penalty for non-liquidation as a body. We have to trace individually yung mga tao na involved dyan. At kung magtatakipan sila, kaya nilang gawin yun.
Budget to 4.32 billion pesos. Saan exactly ginastos ang mga ito? Hindi natin malalaman. Wala namang resibo eh. And the other one
Dapat ayusin ito.
is the confidential, intelligence, and extraordinary expenses. EME. Ito po covers expenses for meetings, seminars, and conferences. Yung official entertainment, di ko alam kung ano yon. Public relations, educational, athletic, and cultural activities, contributions to civic or charitable institutions, membership in government associations, membership in national professional organizations duly accredited by the PRC. Madami ito. Membership pa sa IBP, subscription to professional journals as if naman binabasa nila pati mga informative magazines, library books, mga materials, office equipment and supplies, and other similar expenses not supported by the regular budget allocation. The budget for this in 2022 was 1.467 billion pesos. Ang ginastos, 4.98 billion pesos. A difference of 3.51 billion pesos. In 2023, naging 1.6 billion pesos ang budget. Pero ang ginastos, 4.96 billion pesos. A difference of 3.36 billion pesos. And in 2024, a budget of 1.7 billion pesos. Pero ang ginastos, 5.4 billion pesos. A difference of 3.7 billion pesos.
Bakit kaya nilang
The budget
gumastos na
remained the
ganyan?
same in 2025 but went down by
Ang liit ng kanilang allocations.
266.47 million pesos this year. Kung babalikan natin ang kopya ng
Nahuli
MOOE
kasi sila ng 2026 eh. Kaya ganyan sila. Nahuli sila ng 2026.
budget ng bawat congressman, mabilis lang pong maubos yan. Madali lang for them na i-liquidate yan. Kulang pa nga yan para sa totoong gastos nila sa districts pa lang. Kung matino ang congressman ha. So yung pagpalag,
Supreme Court your move pag ganun, attorney. Hindi mo talaga naiintindihan ang role ng Supreme Court, no? Art of Z. Ito, kung walang batas na magpaparusa sa kanila dahil sila yung gumagawa ng batas, anong gagawin ng Supreme Court? Ang malaking problema dito, yung sistema nila mali. Yung batas na ginawa nila para sa sarili nila, butas. Kahit mag-file ka ng kaso sa Supreme Court, nakalagay nga dito, di ba? No penalty for non-liquidation as a body. So kahit dalhin mo sa Supreme Court yan, Wala magagawa ang Supreme Court. Kailangan mo i-identify individually kung sino yung mga tao na merong kinurakot doon. Hindi trabaho ng Supreme Court yun. Ang trabaho ng Supreme Court, pag may dinala na issue sa kanila, yun. They will decide on that. Hindi Supreme Court yan. Work in luxury, di ba? What a life. Yeah, because they can liquidate by certification. Even if they can liquidate by certification, hindi pa rin sila nagli-liquidate. Sabi ni Sui Generis, taxpayer suit na attorney, it's a long shot pero possible naman. Pero we have to identify individuals.